Welcome back, sickos, to another episode of Necessary Roughness right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, John Boyd, joined today by the boss man himself, Kev, Colts fan, founder of Bite Size Sports, hosting Supersize Sports on Thursdays, soon to be the bounce, I'm sure, as the NBA is back on. But stoked to have you on here, Kev. How you doing, man?
Thank you, John. Appreciate you. Good to be back here. It's been a while since we've been on the NFL program. And so I'm happy to be here. Unfortunately, it's not a great week to be a Colts fan. We'll get into that later. But yeah, good week to be talking football. There's a lot of interesting matchups for us to dive into. And we have a wonderful hot topic coming off the heels of last night's game, don't we, John?
Yes, this is episode something double digits of Unnecessary Roughness. Episode 1, though, of Unnecessary Refness, which is the title of our Thursday Night Football recap segment. So we talked a little bit pre-show. You didn't quite catch all of this game, but you know the big hot button topic of the game sealing no call, and that we're going to get into a lot of the logistics around the way reffing works and kind of the state of it all, what can be overturned, what can be reviewed, things like that, because I think it does really bring up some interesting things in that department. And this could be something, frankly, that does change the way they operate around that. But I want to preface that all with saying the Vikings looked terrible all game. They didn't deserve to win the game. They deserved a chance to tie it. Is my take on it. And there were some pretty ticky-tack calls throughout the game. It was pretty slanted, frankly. There were a lot of self-induced ones, procedural things on the offensive side, which has been too much of a theme of this season and really Kevin O'Connell's tenure with the Vikings. And some of that's on Darnold, some of that's on O'Connell as a play caller. Sometimes it's on other facets of the offense, but chiefly O'Connell, of course, as the head coach and play caller, and that's been an issue. A lot of that was self-induced. There were some really, really touchy defensive holding, DPI kind of calls that resulted in Rams first downs. There were 5 first downs given to the Rams on penalties throughout the game. 4 of those came on a third down rep, where they were granted a first down, and a lot of those were key to sustaining scoring drives. And they some of them by the book penalties. There were just some on the other side, like the highlight reel Justin Jefferson catch that I'm sure you've seen by now. The whole one hand bobble, catch it up here, still get your feet in somehow. On that play, and there were others like it. He's getting held that whole time. That's why he couldn't get his right arm over to it right away. And there were less blatant holdings that were called on the Vikings throughout the game. So that was thematic of the game to that point. But there were a lot of opportunities for the Vikings to take control of this game, for sure. There was a drop by Jalen Naylor on a 3rd and 4 in the red zone, after which the Vikings decided to settle for a field goal to make it 21-20. And that was 2 downs after that Justin Jefferson catch that put him in the red zone. So at that point, they could have taken control back of the game, been leading, changes the script for the rest of the game. You don't know what happens from there. Self-inflicted. But then the Rams march right back down, make it 28-20. They get the ball back after Sam Darnold takes a Caleb Williams sack, trying to spin out of a sack, and ends up losing 15, 16 yards instead of dirting it or going to a check down or whatever. bonehead. They get the ball back with like 3:46 or something like that to go. The Vikings eventually get a stop just before midfield, and the Rams punter, whose name escapes me, was dialed last night. And he sniped another punt inside the 5 to back the Vikings just about all the way up. And from there, we've seen the Vikings be really effective out of their own end zone as an offense. We've seen a lot of, well, I think we've seen 2 90-plus yard drives. We had a 99-yard drive and a 97-yard drive. They've been able to, make some noise when backed up. It hasn't been a death sentence for this offense. 8-point game, you need the 2-point conversion as well. They didn't get a 2-point conversion in the Lions game. That would have, they lost by 2, so that would have been huge. But Sam Darnold drops back on 2nd and 10 into his own end zone. Byron Young just demolishes David Quessenberry off the edge after Christian Darrisaw went to the locker room. We've since heard that he's going to be out with season-ending knee surgery, which is devastating. But Quessenberry gets cooked by Byron Young, really speedy second-year edge rusher. He gets around him. Sam Darnold calmly, collectedly goes to step up in the pocket, gets his face mask yanked, and his head turns 90 degrees, and it's a safety. A game-sealing safety that makes it a 10-point game. Vikings have no timeouts. They try the onside kick, and it was too little too late at that point. But that face mask was not called. The game essentially ended on that play. The back judge was 6 feet from this interaction, and he said he didn't have a good angle on it. But I think he had a great angle on it because from where he stood, Sam Darnold's looking dead ahead. And by the end of that tug on the face mask, that ref has a great view of the full horn on the side of the Vikings helmet. Suddenly you're seeing the entire horn. So what do you think happened, sir? Trey Blake or Trey Blake, TRA. It was ridiculous. And so they said after that game, and again, the Vikings were a shit show. I was wholly dissatisfied with the performance up to that point as well. But I'm of the school of thought that in a football game, the football players should decide the outcome. What happens on the football field between the players within the confines of the rules should decide the outcome. And we didn't get that in that game because of that call. And let me know what you think about this. So after the fact, and it's tricky because a safety is a scoring play. So that should be reviewable, but it's certain things that aren't reviewable on that play. You can drop a flag and pick it up upon deciding it wasn't a penalty. You can't, you can't not throw a flag and then later on decide that you should have and call the penalty. After the game, the refs were interviewed. I wish the interviewer would have been more abrasive with his line of questioning. But they essentially said, I didn't have a good angle on it, and it wasn't enough to warrant the face mask call, and the play is not reviewable. So while I think it was Gene Steratore, like the third party kind of ref talking head said that's clearly a face mask. They weren't able to, go back and retroactively call that. But I think you should be able to, particularly maybe they put it, they confine it to the last however many minutes of the game or the final quarter, or how it lasts however many minutes of each half. But those things, especially when they're that pivotal, And when they're that blatant, I think it's something that you should be able to review and retroactively call, as long, of course, as the next play hasn't been ran. Just like reviewing any given play. That could get messy and really saturated if they start doing that too much. Um, but and I don't even know if it's something that should be able to be challenged, or if that's something that should just take place like in New York with the video assist kind of thing. Um, but that's something they have to get right. You can't let a Ray Charles officiating crew just decide the outcome without any sort of checks and balances from people who do have the angles on it. We didn't have an angle. Okay, great. We've got a floating camera on the high wire. We've got instant replay. We've got all kinds of angles on the broadcast. Give them that feed. What would be so hard about that? It could be a can of worms with like certain things you have to review. But is that kind of your line of thinking too, when you look at a play like that definitively ended a game that was still competitive at that point? It was far from all the way over. The odds were long, but I don't think the odds of the Vikings coming back and tying it and winning in overtime should be a factor in something like that. The priority should be getting the call right on the field and making sure a play doesn't go without a blatant call being missed. But what's your thoughts on that? And if you're kind of in the same line of thinking as me, what would the logistics around that be in your opinion? Like how would that be made to make sense? The way they would review something like that.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, it goes beyond or before yesterday. For me, you might have to help me out with how many years it's been, but there was an NFC championship game, I believe. Maybe it was a divisional round, but there's a game we should all remember that ended with the most blatant pass interference in the history of football. That was somehow missed as a no call. And from that moment, I have felt, John, that penalties should be reviewable. I hate the concept that, well, because it's at the official's discretion, it can't be reviewed, it can't be fixed. Everything is at the official's discretion. The spot of the ball is, any of these penalty calls. So it's very odd to me that we can use review for stuff like, oh, well, he actually did get both feet in bounds, but we can't use the review for, oh, referee clearly missed this obvious penalty that's going to have an impact on the game. For me, I think it is, like you said, it's more important about just getting it right. I don't care if it were a 3-score game and the play with that results in a safety includes a face mask in there. Absolutely, you have to get that call right. And at least in this scenario, you mentioned it might be hard. This might complicate things, but this was a scoring play, and those, to my understanding, are always reviewable in the league. Like if it were again, if it were a situation of spot of the ball, or did we get both feet in bounds, or if this was a blocked punt, did they get possession of it before it went out the back of the end zone? All of those things are reviewable, but the face mask isn't, which you could argue without that face mask, those points don't get scored. So I don't see how it's not reviewable. And the reason I think none of this will change, before I get into how I will change it, is the officials can't have this. The word is out already and has been for years at how bad the NFL officiating is. They can't afford to have this level of oversight. They'll never stand up to that
Game too.
Yeah, I mean, all we have to do is wait for the next Chiefs primetime game. You want to see how just incapable they are of doing their jobs. Just watch the Chiefs play at any time. It's absurd. It's ridiculous how those games just can't seem to be called correctly for some reason. Very odd. But it's, I don't know. It's probably just incompetence. We'll just go with that for now. But for me, you have, as Lee and you have both mentioned, you have the video assist, as you've mentioned, John. You have the old XFL camera. You've got your little drone flying overhead. That was totally your idea. Didn't steal that one from anybody, but hey, you have it. So are we? Yeah, we're in. Fucking use it, okay? Use it. I don't understand, and I don't care about the rate of play, and so maybe I am an outlier here. I am someone who would yearn for baseball in a lot of ways to just go back to the way it was. I think they fixed a lot of things that weren't broken and didn't address their core issues, and so now they still have a game that I don't think is that much better, that much more enjoyable, just because you've added a pitch count and they have stupid rules about now. You've taken out the lefty versus lefty, like you've taken out so much of the strategy and so much of what makes baseball fun that you've ruined it. But I would rather see a football game take an extra hour and have the calls be right and have that exciting finish. And as John said, let the players decide it on the field than worry about, oh, well, we've got to be efficient. We can't take extra time. I mean, if you think about it, to me, I don't think people are going to stop watching football if we take more time for this. If that were the case, the NBA would have been dead years ago. It takes
I was just
an
going to say
hour
that, yeah.
to get through the final minute of a NBA regular season game. Okay, so the if it's good, people will stick around. It just builds the drama. It just builds the tension. Ask Tarantino or Hitchcock about that. All you're doing is stretching out a moment in time. People are going to stay invested in that. You're going to get more spots for advertising. You're going to get a run over then at that point. Fans, again, if you've got the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock splits or whatever, now we're having one of those days where it's football for 12 straight hours. Oh, I hate that, don't I? I don't understand financially, logistically, how it makes any sense. I mean, you can sell more concessions in the stadium. Why I don't get it. I don't think this is a sport that couldn't withstand just going through. It's not like they're going to review every single play, and maybe there's a limit on official challenges, right? Like you get 2 challenges of, I don't know how we would notate the difference here, but let's just say you have your 2 standard challenges as you do, and then you get 1 extra one per half that is a penalty related. Hey, I think you missed a penalty here. I don't know, or maybe you just add one more and I don't know. I'm not saying you should have the infinite ability to challenge every single play, because a lot of folks will tell you there's holding in the trenches on literally every play at every level of football. So that would probably ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give each coach 3 or whatever, you give them some options to challenge the really important ones and make sure those get right, I feel like that would be the best way forward. So naturally, the NFL won't do anything close to that, John.
Yes. Yeah, like, in the time, like in the time the refs on the field kind of do their little huddle, why don't they have an earpiece talking to, some guy in New York with a bunch of screens, like a night shift security guard,
just the guy in the chair, you need your Oracle.
Everything. Yeah, get an Oracle going. Yes, exactly. Batgirl. But get something like that going. Like, why don't you have Jarvis in your ear saying, actually, Mr. Stark, that was a face mask? Because the thing about a face mask too is it's not a subjective call. This isn't I think that was marginal contact. I don't think that was much of a jersey tug. I don't think he inhibited his progress. Face mask, by the book, you could grab the ear hole. You could grab the actual face mask. You could, pull him back by the top of his helmet. If you tug on the helmet or use, the helmet as an apparatus to bring him down, face mask, 15 yards, can't do it. Incredibly dangerous to do. And not only is it like that was a hold, that was such a hold. This is a penalty that's in place so people don't get serious neck injuries. Let's get that one right when we can. Like, it's not subjective. It's like Brianna Stewart objectively traveled and then didn't get fouled, and then she got 2 free throws, and we're not changing anything. No one's No one's calling in from New York and saying, hey, guys, I know you guys are really close to it right now, but I'm telling you, even before this foul that's being challenged, she took 5 steps before she dribbled. So, like, just I know the commissioner's wearing a New York skyline dress right now, but there's going to be a lot of people up in arms if you get this wrong. This is like there's a lot of people watching this. Um, let's get that voice of reason from over. It's been a rough week for me in Minnesota, as you can tell, but it's just I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. We have everything at our disposal. It's a $6 billion or whatever. It's a lot of $1 billion industry. I don't like it. I hate it, and it ruined my night. But today's been a little bit better, marginally better. You talked about at the top that it's not a great time to be a Colts fan either, and I'm curious to hear you extrapolate upon that, because I even mentioned to you pre-show, this is a team that for whatever reason, I think they've been in the same window as the Vikings most weeks. They'll be in the same window as the Vikes next week as well, Sunday night. So we can talk a little bit about that too once we get through this segment. But tell me what's going on with this team. Give me a bird's eye, and then tell me about the QB situation as well. Anthony Richardson's health, whatever trepidation, kind of fills the fan base and the coaching staff right now, with getting Flacco out of there and Richardson back in. I doubt there's any hesitation within the building, but what's his health looking like? How do you feel about his prospects still this season, and kind of the team as a whole sitting at 4-3?
Yeah, the confusion certainly isn't inside the building. There's some outside, but we'll talk about that here in a moment. And I'll take a quick second here to acknowledge that, it's just not a great week for being an Indianapolis fan. My Pacers not getting out of the gate too hot. Luckily, they started the season playing a team that doesn't know how many players are supposed to be on the court at the same time in the that Detroit Pistons, where we lost new pacer James Wiseman out for the year. So that is a bummer. But, this team did not start off super hot last year. So I'm just hoping that they're slow rolling all of us. But back to my other Indiana disappointment. The Colts are I'm being a little harsh because they're playing with house money, in my opinion, this year. It's not a team that was supposed to be good. I had them slated as in a fight for second place in the division. It kind of feels like they're going to get that by default at this point in the season because of what Jacksonville and Tennessee are going through. But when it comes to the Colts right now, the big issues are, injuries are a big issue. Now, depth in general was an issue with this team coming into the season. That's why Colts Twitter was up in arms about Chris Ballard's continued inactivity. We've talked about this on this program before, John. Almost every NFL player who plays the safety position was available this offseason. And the Colts decided to go after exactly 0 of them. They also didn't add any cornerback depth, which they had some talent. Juju Brent's very talented player, got hurt again, though, out for the season. Jalen Jones has been all right. Of course, you got Kenny Moore, but it was a very thin defensive backfield to begin with. And most of their strength was on that front line. They dealt with injuries right away. So they went from having Lato as a nice, exciting rookie depth piece who can come in and take his time to learn. It's like, you got to start right away because the guy in front of you is now out for the season. And, then we've had injuries with DeForest Buckner. Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. And, of course, Anthony Richardson getting in and out here. And that has been the struggle. So, as I talk about this week and why it's not a great week, going up against the Texans, not an ideal matchup for the Colts. my take on it coming into the season was if the Colts are going to beat the Texans, it was going to be in week 1 when given the shortened preseason and fewer reps everybody gets, that almost feels like week 1 is a coin flip for anybody, really. Anything could happen. So that was going to be the week. The Texans are the better team. That was going to be the week I thought the Colts might be able to pull it out. Not so much coming into this situation. We'll look at who is healthy and who is not. Now, I do not have the updates as far as today, but yesterday we did have full practice from DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor, as well as Braden Smith, Michael Pittman Jr., who somehow last week went from being on injured reserve potentially to starting and making the hero play with that 2 hero plays with a big 3rd down reception and a miracle jump ball touchdown that really had no business being a touchdown, but he made the play. So Colts are struggling through their depth situation when it comes to Jonathan Taylor. We've had Goodson step up and kind of supplant. He's replaced Trey Sermon as the backup running back there, and we'll see. It looks like JT will be back. I think Goodson's done enough to earn himself a bigger role, even with JT in there. Hopefully not too big of a role. Shane Steichen, I really have been upset with his management of JT snaps and when to play him. For instance, when he's averaging 8 yards a carry in the first half, and then you don't see him for the entire 4th quarter of a game. And again, if JT is out here not catching passes, then I'd say that's on you, man. You got paid. If Derrick Henry's out here catching passes out of the backfield, there's no excuse. I don't care if they're down 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor cannot be not in the game in the 4th quarter. He's your best offensive player. You got to figure that stuff out. Shane Steichen sometimes gets too cute. It'll be 4th and inches. He'll take out JT, line up in some kind of wingback situation, run a power option to Trey Sermon. What the hell are we doing? It's either a quarterback sneak with your 6'5" quarterback or you're handing the ball to Jonathan Taylor. Like, what are we doing? But for every one of those, he'll have that Joe Flacco boot on 2nd and long with 2.5 minutes where he throws the ball and wins you the game by getting the first down. So Steichen kind of drives you nuts, but you love him when you love him. So the Colts have a whole litany of issues, if I'm being honest. But again, this is a team looking to work its way into its potential, which takes me to the quarterback situation. You got Anthony Richardson there. He was hurt. My other issue with Steichen has been the management of that situation. John, if you missed it, when Richardson got hurt initially, took an odd-looking shot to the side. It was an oblique injury. He went out for a few plays. When he came back, the very first call was an RPO that Richardson got hit again, wouldn't you know, and then came out, missed the next 2 weeks due to that. So to me, that's just stupidity. If he was banged, why are you – obviously, you want him to be who he is. But when you take a hit like that, why is that the play that you're calling? It was before halftime. You could have waited until you had longer to take a look at him, talk to him through the half, and then you want to call those kind of plays in the second half. That's fine. But it's not like you don't have other options in the playbook. So I think they need to do a better job of setting him up for success. And Colts Nation, please stop with this narrative that Joe Flacco, for any reason, should be starting for the Colts. And if you're an NFL media person, you're a paid talking head, and you have the audacity to go out there on a Sunday afternoon and say, well, Joe Flacco gives the Colts a better chance to win. Shame on you. You know better. You know exactly what you're doing. That's ridiculous. A better chance to win what? To chase a wild card berth, go 9-8 and get eliminated in the first round. I've seen that. Go Google Colts Phillip Rivers if you want to see that. We're fine. We're good. We don't need that. You drafted this guy 5th overall. I know he's got accuracy problems. I do want to see a little bit more development, but there are plays when he makes some throws that are superhuman. There was another one last week that got called back, an illegal formation where a blitz gets right around the edge. Anthony has to step off his back foot and heaves one to Alec Pierce, who catches it at the 1-yard line. We talked about that in the offseason, John, the undervalue of Alec Pierce, who at one point in this season was leading the league in yards per catch. So there's stuff there. There's potential there. You got to run it out with Anthony. you have to see what you have there. To me, not only this year, but next year as well. And just let Joe Flacco be the backup. But that's my take on that. Unfortunately, I do think the Texans will win this week. But John, what keep me in line here? Am I off base with this whole notion that it should never even be considered if Anthony Richardson is healthy, he's the starter? Am I wrong there?
No, I agree with you. And it's so in his 2.5 games roughly Flacco's played, two, real starts. Over that time, over his 114 dropbacks, he is sixth in the NFL in EPA per dropback, estimated points added. Anthony Richardson is seventh worst in EPA per dropback. 48 and point something percent completion for Richardson on the season. He's very feast or famine, especially at this point in his career. But no, you don't shake the trees with actually like a calculated sitting of Anthony Richardson, in my opinion. You drafted him knowing he started 14 games in college, and he hasn't gotten the live reps to see that development to this point with the injuries he's had since coming into the NFL. This is a guy who's started less than 30 games at the college or an NFL level combined. So I think there are some things on a down-to-down basis for sure, from what I've seen with him that are worrisome. But it's easier to iron out some sort of timing things, footwork things, processing things than it is to teach someone to throw it 69 yards on a frozen rope off your back foot.
Yeah.
Or to teach someone to rip a 70-mile-an-hour fastball to Ashton Doolin on a backside basic. Like, these are things that you can't teach, and they're really high level traits that you need to try and hone and build around with some more foundational things. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that, Josh Allen or some of the better scorers in the NBA. You'd rather have a guy that you feel like you need to reel in than a guy who you feel like you need to rev up to make big plays or to build confidence. He's willing to throw it into tight windows. He, of course, adds an extra element to your offense as a runner. His size as a runner, the durability to this point hasn't come with it, but he projects as a more durable runner of the football than a lot of quarterbacks we've seen with that play style. Like, he's a Josh Allen sized dude, even a little bit, if I'm not mistaken, like 10-ish pounds heavier than Josh. So it's some of the traits he has and some of the God-given ability and his physical attributes are just something you have to stay married to, especially with the investment you have in him. The human element and the semantics of, you being our starting quarterback. Like, you can't just take back benching a guy. And
That's true too.
telling him and telling the league, hey, we don't believe in you yet. Instead of giving him these live reps that'll give him a chance to actually like raise his floor. You know what I mean? Like, there's like I said, he's very, very feast or famine right now. There's really crazy what the fuck plays, what are we doing? And then there's what the fuck plays where it's like, how did he do that? He's one of 5 quarterbacks in the league that can make some of the throws he can. So, and yeah, like, you've got in Alec Pierce, you've got a really excellent deep threat to pair with that skill set. He throws a beautiful deep ball more often than not. He's able to get it off from awkward angles and rescue pockets in order to get the deep ball there. And then you got like Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, who are really good intermediate winners. Josh Downs has been a really good separator. He's also a really good contested catcher for his size.
Yeah.
You've got some tight ends you like. You've got a really good foundational run game. This was never the year,
Right.
Let's just ride with it. Joe Flacco doesn't want to start Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco's like, no, this is his team. I'm here to help out.
Yeah, and 100%. And I like to be clear, I don't disagree that we will win, that the Colts will win more games if Joe Flacco is playing. I just don't think that should be the goal. That even if you make the playoffs, why? What would be the point of that? Because it wasn't, to me, that would just be icing on the cake. Because if this team was constructed to be a playoff team, why didn't they spend some of that money that was available to add that veteran depth to the defense? Why didn't they go do what the Titans did when the Titans thought that they had
Yes.
it? And like, okay, we've got the young guy. We're a playoff squad. Let's go add all these pieces. Why didn't the Colts do any of it? Because this wasn't that year either. Or you might be on the side of, well, Chris Ballard doesn't know what he's doing, and I'm not here to argue against you on that today. But I would say that this was always the plan, to see what we've got, continue to tap into that potential, see what it's there, because that was always their answer about why they didn't add defensive pieces either. They wanted to see what they had on that side of the ball as well in some instances. So this was always about the rebuild. It was always about seeing what we've got. And again, Colts fans, it won't be the worst thing in the world to have another good crop of draft picks. Normally this is when I would point to the Pacers and the change in their dynamic just by having a couple years that they sucked. But so far it looks like this might be another one of those years that they sucked. So yeah, let's just not aim to just make the dance. All right. It's okay to be bad for a couple of years and really stockpile that roster. And hopefully you hit on Anthony Richardson. And if you don't, I mean, these are the chances that you take, right? There's Joe Flacco going into 2025's regular season is not going to be the answer. So there's no point in trotting him out there to start this year.
And you've only got so much time to find that out. You know what I mean? While he's on his rookie deal, and you find out he is that guy, you've only got so much time to leverage that on his rookie contract and build a strong team around him. So, yeah, similarly to the young pieces on defense. And Chris Ballard, for all the shit he gets about free agency and maybe pulling triggers on trades. I mean, the Buckner trade was fun.
How about that Carson Wentz trade?
How about the Carson Wentz trade? For all that shit he gets,
that turned out pretty good. We got Josh Downs out of that. Got a lot of good pieces out of that one.
Yes, for all the shit he gets, he's an excellent talent scout and drafter of young players. Over his tenure, he's been one of the very best GMs in the NFL on draft night. So give him another, see what you have this year. Give Anthony Richardson as many live reps as you can get him feasibly, and roll into another offseason. Let Chris Ballard knock another draft out of the park, or at least have a pretty decent one. But Chris, spend some money this offseason. And I think you're feeling all right about that. But well, thank you for the Colts corner. As well, Lee and Ben, thanks for hopping in the chat and hanging out with us. Let us know in the chat as well what your favorite Week 8 matchup is. Kev and I each have one of our own here. And for me, this is the rematch of one of the best games of the season to this point. Week 5 Thursday nighter overtime game between the Bucks and the Falcons. They're both sitting at 4-3 now for their second matchup. This one's at Tampa Bay. And Baker Mayfield and the boys are going to be without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for this game.
Yeah, it's literally Baker and the boys. It's
Baker and the boys. Trey Palmer. I like this one, Lee. I would have picked it if Jaden Daniels was for sure going to be playing. It sounds like he might not. I haven't seen any other updates today yet. I was driving most of the day, but let me know if you've heard anything else about Jaden Daniels' status.
Because that is a lot of fun. If that works out where they both play, that is a
picks
lot
1
of
and
fun.
2.
I agree with you.
Wentz and Goff. But I think that it still could be a really interesting game. You still could see a shootout. This is an Atlanta team that is dead last in the league in pressure rate. It's one of the worst pass rushes. They haven't had a decent pass rusher since like John Abraham.
Yeah, and then they just
1 or 2
got
good
Judon,
years of
right?
Dante Fowler. They got Judon, and he hasn't really been that rising tide they thought he might be. Arnold Ebiketie, some flashes. Ben, you would like that game. Titans D line, Lions O line. But I think you still could get some fireworks here. Trey Palmer can give you some juice. You might see like 12 Cade Otton targets. You might see like 10 Rashad White targets.
I was
out
just
of the
about to say,
backfield.
yep.
Because
a
a lot
little
of
more Bucky Irving too.
Yeah, more Bucky Irving, who runs like an animal. I think you're going to see a lot of that run game from the Bucs, whose O-line has been really strong this year since Gadecki got back in particular, and Wirfs is all-world. But a lot of what Godwin provided was in the screen game. I mean, we saw him house a tunnel screen for like 64 yards 2 weeks ago. And so I think that will probably be replaced in the aggregate by running back screens. You might see a little bit of a Trey Palmer in that role, but he's going to be a vertical field stretcher for you, I think, a lot of the time. He's going to get a lot of cardio in, running some clear outs if he's not getting separation on those, but it should open some things up in the intermediate for Cade Otton.
I was about to say, they'll run tight end screens for Cade too. I think I saw one of those last week.
Yeah, and a lot of this is weighted down by the early absence of Antoine Winfield Jr. But the Bucs defense, 22nd in EPA per pass allowed. The Falcons defense, 24th in EPA per pass allowed. They don't generate any pressure. The Bucs are a decent pressure team with some. They've drafted really well along the defensive line as well. Kalijah Kancey and Yaya Diaby have been really, really good for them. Of course, Vita Vea is there. You've got the ageless wonder, Levante David, and some really good pieces in the secondary. But the defense really hasn't been fully realized this season. They're still blitzing at one of the highest rates in the league. So you've also got a really blitz happy and really well calculated blitz happy team drawn up by Todd Bowles for the Bucs against Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins against the blitz is always an interesting thing. If he's locked in, he can really punish you, but that he can also be flummoxed by the blitz at times. And this is not a great pass blocking unit in Atlanta, especially if they're not unburdened by, some really heavy play action, which they're getting to a little bit more of. But early on, Zach Robinson was putting these guys in pistol and the gun and really hanging guys like Caleb McGarry out to dry on the front side of these protection looks. So, like, I wonder what gives between, the Falcons offense against the Bucs defense. Are they still going to be able to light it up, having their full repertoire of pass catchers and weapons on the offensive side, and Bijan and Tyler Algier? Are they going to be able to punish a defense that's been pretty underwhelming this season, but is coached really well? And are the Bucs still going to be able to take advantage of the several pressure points along the Falcons defense without any of their real separators left? Godwin, who's been great. Mike Evans isn't necessarily a separator anymore. He is an underrated route runner. weirdly, but it doesn't matter really how much separation he has at times. He's also really um, adept at just kind of sitting in the right soft spot of a zone, just that veteran sort of presence he brings. So without those two, are you going to be able to generate anything? You should have plenty of time, but our guy's going to get open against this defense. This might be a really hard-nosed running game for both teams. And you might have the two best safeties in the league playing in this game, which is kind of fun. In Jesse Bates and Antoine Winfield. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to like about this game. Winner is probably in the driver's seat for the AFC South with the way the Saints have fallen off and the shit show we have in Carolina. So I think this could go either way, and it might be a relief. Like I think it's going to be neck and neck either way, but I have no idea. I'm curious. I might look up the over under. But I'm curious if this does kind of lean towards a shootout or if both teams kind of, really try to run the ball and control the clock because Todd Bowles, if he gets you behind the sticks, if he gets you into passing downs, can really cause some problems. And Kirk, as surgical as he can be when he's really dialed in and as he was in that overtime win throwing for 500, if that's not something he's able to take advantage of, Todd Bowles can really cause some problems on passing downs. So maybe both teams just run the hell out of the ball and it's 19-14 or something like that, but it might be, 60, 65 points going up between the two teams. So I'm just curious to say which way this fits in that regard. I think it'll be close either way, and division games are always fun, but I am going to look up the over-under and see if I can find it because I wonder what Vegas set it at. 45.5. So that's, it's relatively high. It's higher than Jets Pats.
I would hope.
But, so Vegas is thinking something like 24, 21, something like that. Diggs, by the way, looks like Trayvon Diggs, by the way.
Love that.
Thanks for
What
joining,
is
man.
up, Diggs? And Lee says Kyle Hamilton's the best safety in the league. And although I love me some Jesse Bates, you can probably see this little fighting Irish leprechaun right here at the bottom of my screen. So I can't disagree with that one, Lee. I'm not going to argue with you.
Give me this. We've got the two best center fielders in the league playing in this game.
Ooh, I'd give you that one. I wouldn't argue. Again, a bit of a homer take for me. I do love Hamilton. But for my money, just like eye test without looking into the advanced stats and stuff, if you ask me like who's the best safety in the league right now, I would say Bates. Like, it would be my instinct to say Bates. But I as an IDP fantasy player, I can confirm that Kyle Hamilton's having himself quite a year. He is unbenchable. He's a must start.
He's electric. Diggs, thanks for joining. If you're in the chat, drop your favorite Week 8 matchup while we're still on this segment. Kev, what is your game you're most looking forward to this weekend?
See, mine's a little different, John. You went with a division rivalry that will determine who's going to be in first place, essentially. I went with what, for me, is I love these matchups that they feel like a what if or an otherworld playoff scenario where you have two really good teams that you would just love to see play in the playoffs, but they're in different conferences and honestly, neither of them's getting to the Super Bowl, most likely. So for me, I am looking at the Bills-Seahawks matchup this week. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Bills are 3-point favorites coming in. DK Metcalf is doubtful for Seattle. I'm sure that is contributing a lot. ESPN's fantasy app decided to send me an alert this week saying to downgrade Gino. Don't worry, ESPN. That was a bye-week flex start. You don't have to worry, okay? So downgrade Geno if you've got him. But I do think I like what the Seahawks team has. I love that running back. I love that running game with Kenneth Walker III. And I think they're going to keep it close. It's an interesting matchup that, you don't get to see these two teams play each other every year. They're both good teams. Seattle's in a prime position right now to potentially take advantage of San Francisco's misfortune and win this division. So it could be if they do win this game against a good Bills team, huge boost for them going down the stretch as somebody who could really be a threat to maybe win a couple of games in the playoffs. Again, I don't think Seattle is a Super Bowl contender this year, but that's the matchup that I'm looking at. I think it would be a lot of fun. So any thoughts from you on that back and forth there, John?
Yeah, this might be my two favorite quarterbacks to watch in this matchup you've got. Josh Allen, just because of the running ability he has, the calculated recklessness with which he throws the ball at certain times.
Chris Collinsworth.
He's been really good this season, but Geno is like it's so funny with Geno because I think to the lay NFL fan, he's probably not really on your radar. But if you watch enough of him, some of the things he does just to keep this team afloat are otherworldly. He's one of those guys who can get it out of there from goofy arm angles. He rescues the pocket very, very well. Just the way he steps up and navigates and just finds just enough room to get a ball off. He also throws a lot of fuck it balls that get exactly where they need to go. Like just some riveting throws. And he's really fun to watch. And if he's on, they can kind of hang in with anybody. Like when Goff had his perfect game against the Seahawks, I think given the circumstances and everything else going on around them, I think Geno might have had an even better game in that Detroit game. Geno was unreal. And there were a couple of there was the one turnover, I think it was one pick. But I mean, just some of the things he pulled off to just save plays was unbelievable. And his O-line's been rough. It's not a great pass blocking unit right now, but yeah, I like their run game. I like the Bills' run game a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think the Mike McDonald defense is kind of starting to come together, find its groove. They just traded for Ernest Jones, which is cool. Bills just traded for Amari Cooper, which is cool. Made a big impact in his first game with them. So, there's some pretty fun narratives, pretty fun headlines going on with this game. So I like that call out a lot as well. Let's go negative with it to end the show, because why not? Well, we gave you guys the good news first. Actually, you know what? We gave you probably worse news than this first from the Thursday night game, but I did go that whole segment without praising Matthew Stafford, who very similarly to Geno is just mechanical within the pocket, rescuing broken pockets, finding little windows to get the ball off, and he was really dialed in. Granted, the Vikings got 3 pressures throughout the whole game, and Bo Limmer was at center for the Rams. And Jonathan Grenard coming into that game was on pace for the most pressures since J.J. Watt in 2014, and he might not be anymore. But Stafford and Kupp and Nakua, when those guys are healthy, are unreal. But let's go to what teams have the most to lose in Week 8. If this team loses a game this week, the game they have scheduled, what else do they lose, and how much is it going to impact the season? Lee comes in with the Cowboys right away at the Niners this week, Sunday night, if I'm not mistaken. That's a good call for sure. Kev, who do you have for most to lose in week 8 with a loss?
Yeah, Lee and I are on the same page here. I have the Cowboys. I joked with you pre-show, John, that you could maybe make a case for the Niners as well, based on their record right now. But when, as John pointed out, their healthiest receiver got shot in the preseason, it's kind of hard. And there's no McCaffrey. Like it's hard to
Oh,
put that
man.
on the Niners. But if you're the Cowboys and you have this matchup against what coming into the season was thought to be one of the best teams in the NFC, and this is the state that they are in, and you're coming off the performances that you've been coming off of, to me, this feels like a must win for the Cowboys. It's a much easier game than it probably should have been for you coming in. You have to take advantage of this one right now. And I really don't think they can afford more negative momentum in Dallas. And what is up, Ruben? Yay. Hey, there you go. This is Justin Herbert, John, of our
Nice.
former, our dear friend and former chatter is back. Welcome back, dude. Welcome back, Ruben. Great to have you, brother.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Are you a Sacramento fan?
No,
maybe.
He's a Sixers fan. Remember?
That's right. That's right. I was thinking he's LA Chargers.
He just wants to bust you up, man.
he came in with a nice thing to say. He had to even that out. That makes sense. I get you. So this is funny. We've got two people in the chat who immediately called out both of our picks.
Dialed in, gang. Look at this.
Dialed in. You guys are shooting. You guys are batting 1,000 in the chat. Way to go. Yes, I've got the Jets here. You traded for Davante Adams, and they drop a game, his first game there, and he's interviewed in the locker room after this game, and they talked about execution or something like that, the reporter, and he goes, I mean, yeah, that's been this team's problem all year. Like, you just got there. Don't act like you have a pulse on the Jets right now.
He probably does. Aaron's been telling him all season. He probably knows everything that's been going on. They've been talking about this for weeks.
Yeah. Oh, Ruben, you should have been here for our preseason show. I was on the Chargers early, and I got some shit for it, but I was on the Chargers early. I'm with you.
Hey, Ruben, just so you know, I've got your boy Lad McConkey, multiple fantasy drafts, dude. People were just letting that guy fall.
Me too.
Come on. We're with you, brother.
Me too. It was unreal. It was unreal. I had him and Luke McCaffrey, and my kicker was on a bye, and it was very early in the morning, and I dropped Lad McConkey instead of McCaffrey. And I was able to plead my case. I got in the group chat immediately, and I was like, guys, look me dead in the face and tell me I meant to drop McConkey over McCaffrey, and tell me that isn't a slip that you would fall into as well. But no, I think it's the Jets here. And it's Todd Downing calling plays now. It's Brent Ulbrich calling defensive plays now. Everything's different, but everything's the same somehow. You've got Davante Adams in the building. You've got Garrett Wilson. Tyler Conklin weirdly has been having a pretty good season. Brees and Braylon Allen. This offense should be good, but you're in New England, divisional game. Whichever of these teams is good at any given time always has trouble with the other one. It was even post Rex Ryan, even like Todd Bowles era Jets used to just give the Patriots fits. They used to just get one every year
with Fitzpatrick occasionally, right? Literally,
yeah, sometimes. With Fitz here and there. Yeah, who gives a shit? But there's some interesting things here. So you got Drake May under center now for the Pats. So oh god, okay.
I like
You've
this.
got
These are
Drake May
a
under
couple of
center for
banger comments
touchdown.
in a row.
Those are great. Any sort of spelling from Aaron Rodgers is something I welcome. Um,
You gotta say
you got
sanguine.
Drake May under center now for the Pats. Second career start. Looked really, really sharp in his first one. Especially compared to like the draft takes where it's like, he's gonna need a lot of time to develop, he's gonna need to work out these kinks and play more under control and not take these chances and blah blah blah. He was very, very measured in his first game. The touchdown he threw to I want to say JJ Taylor, but I know he's not with them anymore. Who's their like
Was it
third string
DeMario?
back?
Oh wait, no,
No,
it
no,
was
no, no.
the
Their
running
third
back.
string running back, not Stevenson, not Gibson. Oh, that's gonna bug me. Anyway, the touchdown he threw to him was a 3rd and 8 check down that he got man at the snap when they were hoping to take advantage of zone out of a bunch, and he just checked it right down in space. Trayvon Walker was cross matched on the running back from the opposite side of the formation, completely out leveraged. He was like, all right, I could throw the hero ball to the corner pylon right now, or I could check this down. And his back got yards after the catch, got into the end zone. Really, really like collected performance from him, the 2 touchdowns. And what he gives them with his mobility, like in comparison to Jacoby Brissett, is really interesting. So in his first start, 38% pressure rate, but the pressure conversion rate, pressure to sack conversion rate was 13%. Through Jacoby's starts throughout this season, the offensive line was the worst in the league, allowing pressure at a 46.5% rate, and the pressure conversion rate when Jacoby was under center was over 22%. So again, 1 game sample size. It's tough to extrapolate that, but he's giving you a little bit more in like the off script kind of game, and he gets a little bit more zip on it than Jacoby. I really like Jacoby Brissett. He gives you like a reasonable floor if you've got a good team around him. But I think Drake May can give you a little bit more ceiling raising play, even given the talent around him. I mean, look at his last year at North Carolina. He had Tez Walker for like 4 or 5 games, and then it was not much NFL talent on the offense once Downs graduated. But he gives you a lot as a runner too, out of the backfield, which is really fun. And now they face a Jets defense that's 6th in pressure rate to this point in the season, 6th in EPA per pass allowed, but pretty middle of the road in rush EPA. So if you can establish the run with Stevenson and Gibson and get Gibson out of the backfield and whatever, and just make it a little easier on Drake May, I think he can keep them right in this thing. You're in Foxborough. Jets are reeling, division rival, just kind of a pride game. It's 2-5 at 1-6. If the Jets lose, it would be cataclysmic. If the Patriots lose, they don't give a shit. Lose as much as you want. Drake May development season. House money. You're playing with house money at your own house against a division rival with whom you have a lot of bad blood. And I think this is a really sneaky game that the Jets could lose. I would, I could see it, and I really like Drake May to this point. And the Patriots defense, if they've had some health issues, and Gerard Mayo called them soft, and Bill Belichick rebuked that statement, and he said these guys aren't soft. I mean, look, these guys are not soft. But he felt bad for the players that was said. So maybe they come out really hungry.
Oh, now what had that grandpa energy? Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Isn't that just the most grandparent thing to do? Like, this is not the coach that raised us. What do you mean? You're out here. Oh, they're not soft. Okay, they're just sweethearts. Give them another piece of candy.
I know.
Who is this guy?
I know I was hard on you growing up, but don't be hard on my grandkid. He's a good kid.
He's a good boy. I'm with you on the thing, though. I want to add, just for fun, as a little shout out to Trevor and and Josh out there doing the Another Damn Fantasy podcast. My
Yeah.
Mr. Irrelevant throughout a lot of drafts was Demario Douglas, waiting for this very moment,
Yeah.
because at the end of the season, he started to come on a little bit. He's a real quick. They line him up in the slot a lot, but he's not. To me, he's not their third receiver. Like, he could very well be their top receiver. He just runs that slot situation a lot, and he did see some success with Drake May in there. So I do think you're onto something here, John. It would be it would be so a Jets thing to do for them to lose this game too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Oh yeah, Mayo was he was a good player up the
It's
middle.
like, is that fair?
They had crazy run of linebackers for that 2-decade championship window. Crazy run of linebackers. Vrabel, Brewski, Mayo, Hightower, Van Noy,
Maybe
Jamie
like
Collins.
Brian Urlacher calling the Bears defense soft today. Well, it's like, well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
compared to you, probably, you and Mike Brown, we are soft. Yeah. What do you want from me?
Or D'Amico coaching his former team as a former middle linebacker for him. It's like Brian Cushing being like, "Come on, just spear him with no helmet on. You guys are candy asses. Do a steroid. Get a nosebleed. What the fuck's going on out there?"
Yeah, not one of these nosebleeds. We're talking about the broken the ridge
from the bridge. Yeah.
The bridge. The John Ritchie nosebleed.
Oh man, dude. Yeah, no, that's a top tier comment from Lee there. I'm just seeing these from Ruben too. Yeah, this is true. If this is your first time watching, this is a long time viewer, and he's seen a lot of sports streamers out there just firing takes off. But no, I appreciate the kind words, Ruben. We do try to have a cogent show most nights. So
some nights we do all right.
Some nights we do all right. I'm also very concerned about the Jags at home against a very good Packers team, so I think that's a little bit different, but that's kind of an honorable mention for me. They've dug themselves a pretty deep hole already this season. Knocked that one right out of the park. But that's a fuck show over there. So they really need to win. They're at home. They're back on American soil. Can you get some semblance of an offense going? Are you going to go back to Tank Bigsby? Are you going to give Tank Bigsby another 20-plus touches? Because you certainly should.
Do it. My fantasy, my dynasty team is begging you.
Yeah. Lee knows.
We're a year early, but let's do
it. And we should have known. Guy comes into the NFL with a name like Tank Bigsby. Bust proof.
He just sounds like the kind of dude that, your road to Heisman on rookie for 4 years at running back. You break Archie Griffin's record every year. You got Barry Sanders and Archie out here. You're just like, sounds like the kind of dude I would have created for the Tiburon Warriors.
Oh, yeah, no, that sounds exactly like a creative player name I would use right around the time I got old enough to come to grips that I would never make it. Once I stopped using my own name, I'd be like, let me just make a sick guy. Tank Bigsby.
Tank Bigsby.
How's that for a running back?
Running back and linebacker during the high school portion.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's all we've got on the docket. Thanks to everybody in the chat and everybody lurking as well. Thanks for tuning in. We will be back in effect next Tuesday. So we've got a short week coming up. Had a little bit of a mini bye this week. I was working out of town, and Ben was unavailable on Tuesday. So, but we'll be back 8 p.m. Central next Tuesday, 9 Eastern. But Kev, thanks for subbing in and joining me. This was fun as always. Now that I'm starting to ingest a lot of Wolves takes. I'm gonna have to jump on the bounce with you here pretty soon too. But anything else you want to plug on the way out, and where the people can find your excellent work? And for those of you watching, Ben will be back next Tuesday. We've got written confirmation on that, so we're going to hold them to it. But Kev, go ahead and let them know where they can find you and your excellent work.
Well, thank you
this
for that.
summer.
Yeah, Ben will return in Necessary Roughness. I almost said unnecessary roughness. Maybe, hopefully not. Hopefully we're not talking about that again next week. But you can find me on Thursdays. New time, by the way, for the Thursday show fans. I don't know when the switch will be official. As of right now, we're still just doing it as Supersize Sports, so we can talk about everything, not just basketball focused, but we will be spending a lot more of our Thursdays talking about basketball now that so the bounce may exist as the show within the show over on Supersize Sports. But throughout the NFL season, throughout the remainder of the campaign, we will be going live at 7 p.m. so that we can preview the Thursday night game with all of you and talk about it and get out of the way so that everybody can go watch Thursday night football. Whereas previously we would start the show really around the same time or during the first half of Thursday night football. And then we try to get out for you by the third quarter. Wanted to shake that up a little bit and be a nice little supplemental podcast to fit in not only with Necessary Roughness on Tuesdays, but with Another Damn Fantasy podcast on Wednesday. So you'll get still a nice little football sliver. So if you're really just here for the NFL stuff, now you still have 3 nights in a row each week where you can come hang out with us and talk NFL. So go check me out there. And also on our sister station Dweeb, that's 2 D's on the front. James and I are over there putting out live content and new videos all the time. So if you're a nerd like we are, come and talk Star Wars, Marvel, horror movies are real big right now. We got to have John back on soon, John. We'll talk about that later, but we got to have you over talking dweeb with us here again soon. Other than that, Carnage Media pay-per-view, MMA, kickboxing. That's it for me, John. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been too long since we've talked together. Like I said, we need you over on Han or something over. Come nerd out with us soon.
Yeah, I'll have to get on there. Anything I'm at all interested in, I have to be a huge fucking nerd about. So I will definitely come back on here pretty soon. But yeah, you can find me, like I said, next Tuesday. Maybe some other places around the channel. You might see me guesting on various Vikings podcasts on YouTube or Spotify. But those will be on my Twitter feed. You can follow me there at John B. Boyd 12. John with an H as God intended. And you can find all of my written work covering the Vikings on zonecoverage.com. 2 pieces a week out there. I'm glad there's a long 10-day week between now and the next Vikings game that I have to get those 2 pieces out, because I've been dwelling on that loss a good bit. And what I do every week is break down the Brian Flores defense, with some film clips attached and a lot of scheme stuff there. And this is going to be probably the toughest one to do so with, as there's a lot of chinks in the armor. But also going to have a recap piece, and I'm working now on a Christian Darrisaw piece and his impact on the offense and how much we're going to feel it now that he's ruled out for the season. So that's another one I've been procrastinating a little bit because that one is a gut punch. But if you like the Vikings, or if you're just interested in how they might match up against your favorite team, check out the written work there on zonecoverage.com/Vikings. But other than that, until next week, thanks for watching another episode of Necessary Roughness right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. Have a good night.